Okay, so get this right. Today we are diving deep into a UN Women report. And it's all about women mediating conflicts.
Oh, wow.
But not like, not in a fancy office or anything.
Right.
We're talking like right in the thick of things.
Oh, interesting.
In places like, Iraq, Libya,
Yeah.
Syria, Yemen,
Wow.
those sorts of places.
That's fascinating. We usually picture like mediators in suits,
Right.
sitting around a big table. But this report, it highlights these incredible women
Yeah.
who are, they're often without any official titles. They're just stepping up to resolve conflicts in their communities.
And they're dealing with some really, really heavy stuff, too.
Oh, yeah.
This is not like, neighborhood squabbles.
Right.
This report dives into conflicts over ceasefires, access to essential resources,
Oh, wow.
even family disputes that get like 10 times worse because of these ongoing wars.
Yeah.
Can you even imagine like the weight of that responsibility?
It's really quite remarkable. The report, it calls them insider mediators.
Insider mediators.
Yeah. And it makes so much sense when you think about it. These women, they are deeply woven into the fabric of their communities.
Yeah.
They understand all the nuances of the conflict.
Right.
And people trust them. That's their power.
Okay, so tell me more about this whole insider mediator thing.
Sure.
Am I picturing like a community elder, or is it broader than that?
It's broader than that. It's not necessarily just community elders.
Okay.
The report highlights the sheer diversity of these women.
Yeah.
We're talking teachers in Yemen sorting out resource disputes.
Okay.
Iraqi nurses who gain neutrality, right, because they care for people on both sides of the conflict.
Oh, interesting.
It's not about a specific role. It's about their position within the community.
It's about that trust.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, we're constantly bombarded with news about, the big peace talks. But this report is saying that real change, like lasting change, often starts much closer to home.
Exactly. And it's not just about ending the violence, right?
Yeah.
These women, they're working to rebuild trust. They're healing those deep societal divisions.
Right.
They're paving the way for a lasting peace. So it's really multifaceted.
Okay, so give me the details.
Okay.
What are some of these stories that the report highlights? I gotta know.
Well, one that really stood out to me was about the siege of Zabadani in Syria.
Oh, wow. Okay, wait. For those of us who don't have the Syrian conflict memorized,
Sure.
can you give us a little context? Like, what was Zabadani? What was going on there?
Sure. So Zabadani, it's a town just northwest of Damascus.
Okay.
And it was under siege by government forces and their allies.
So we're talking constant shelling, limited access to food and medicine.
Exactly.
Like a truly dire situation.
Absolutely. A very, very dire situation.
And in this situation, men were either like, caught in the fighting.
Right.
Or at risk of being detained.
Yeah.
So the women stepped up.
They did.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
So how did they do that?
What?
How did they convince these armed actors to even listen to them, let alone like agree to a ceasefire?
It was really remarkable. They leveraged their unique position. They weren't seen as a threat.
Why?
Plus, they were witnessing the suffering firsthand.
Of course.
Their children going hungry.
Yeah.
Their neighbors injured.
Right.
So they could appeal to the humanity of the fighters in a way that outsiders just couldn't.
Yeah, it's that shared experience.
Exactly.
That empathy that makes them so effective.
Precisely. And you have to think about the courage this took.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
They were putting themselves at immense risk.
Yeah.
Walking between front lines.
Negotiating with people who had the power to harm them.
Exactly.
It's mind-blowing.
It is.
When you think about it, they were literally risking their lives to bring peace to their community.
And they weren't alone. The report, it's filled with similar stories from across the region.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For example, in Yemen, where years of conflict have just decimated the country, women are stepping up to resolve disputes over things like water resources,
Oh, wow.
which are essential for survival.
So it's not just about those big, like, flashy peace agreements.
Right.
It's about addressing those everyday issues that can truly, like, make or break a community.
Absolutely. And what's really intriguing is how these women are navigating these complex social and cultural norms around them.
Oh, yeah.
In many of these societies, there's a strong expectation for women to stay in traditional roles.
So how do they deal with that? Are they constantly, like, pushing back against those expectations?
Well, It's not always about outright defiance.
Oh.
Sometimes it's about finding these creative ways to work within those norms.
Okay.
And in some cases, they're even using those norms to their advantage.
Wait, really? Hold on. Give me an example of that. How can traditional expectations actually help?
So let's go back to Yemen.
Okay.
There's this concept of women being the protectors of tradition, right?
Right.
So some women, they leverage that by framing their mediation efforts as upholding these values of peace and harmony.
Okay.
That are deeply ingrained in Yemeni culture.
So they're basically saying, hey, peace is part of our tradition.
Exactly.
And I'm just upholding that tradition.
Yes. And it works. They're using the very norms that could hold them back.
Wow.
To actually empower their work.
That is so clever.
It is.
That's such a great example of how resourceful these women are. And strategic.
Yes.
It really challenges our assumptions about what it means to be a peace builder, doesn't it?
It certainly does. You know, we tend to think of peace building as this very formal, high-level process.
Right.
But these women, they're showing us that it can also be incredibly personal.
Yeah.
Grounded in those everyday relationships and a deep understanding of their communities.
Okay, but let's be real for a minute. These women, they're facing some serious challenges, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We can't just paint a rosy picture here.
Of course not. No, the report acknowledges those challenges head on.
Yeah.
You know, they often face harassment, threats, even backlash from their own families.
Right.
For stepping outside those traditional roles.
Yeah, it can be really tough.
And let's not forget the dangers inherent in navigating active conflict zones.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not just about personal courage, right? It's about working within a system that doesn't always support or protect them.
Precisely. And that's why this report is so important. It's not just celebrating these women's achievements.
Yeah.
It's calling for a fundamental shift in how we approach peace building.
So what would that look like?
Well,
what specific changes need to happen to truly empower these women and to make their work more sustainable?
That's a great question, and one that we'll delve into further. But before we do, I want to highlight another fascinating aspect of this report.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay.
What else is this report revealing?
Well, remember how we talked about these women working within their communities?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out their reach goes far beyond that.
Okay.
The report highlights how these local mediation efforts can actually influence the bigger picture, those national level peace processes we often hear about.
Whoa, hold on. I thought those big peace talks were all about, like, diplomats and politicians hashing things out in some fancy conference room.
Right.
How do local efforts tie into that?
Well, think of it this way. Those high-level talks.
Yeah.
They're setting the broad framework, right?
Okay.
But the success of any peace agreement, it hinges on what's happening on the ground, right?
Yeah.
It's the local communities that have to live with the consequences.
That's true. You can sign all the papers you want.
Right.
But if there's still that tension and conflict brewing at the community level, it's not going to stick.
Exactly. And that's where these women come in.
Okay.
They're bridging the gap between those lofty ideals and the messy reality of daily life in conflict zones.
Yeah.
They're addressing those root causes of conflict, rebuilding trust, and creating an environment where peace can actually take root.
So they're not just putting out fires.
Right.
They're preventing them from starting in the first place.
Exactly. It's about creating a sustainable peace, not just a temporary ceasefire.
Okay, but I'm still a little fuzzy on how they influence those big peace talks. Do they have a seat at the table? Are they, like, whispering in the ears of diplomats?
It's not always that direct. Sometimes it's about providing information, sharing their insights about what's actually happening on the ground.
Right.
They're the ones who understand the local dynamics, the specific needs of their communities.
So they're the eyes and ears on the ground, feeding that crucial information back to those who are shaping policy.
Exactly. And sometimes their influence is more indirect. By successfully resolving those conflicts at the local level, they're demonstrating that peace is possible.
Yeah.
That dialogue can work.
So they're leading by example, showing those in power that there's another way.
Exactly. They're proving that peace isn't just this abstract concept.
Right.
It's something that can be built from the ground up, one community at a time.
That's incredibly powerful.
It is.
But I imagine there are also challenges in connecting those local efforts to the national level.
Absolutely. Sometimes there's a mistrust of those formal peace processes.
Okay.
You know, some local mediators worry about being co-opted, about their work being manipulated for political gain. And sometimes they simply feel that their voices aren't being heard.
So it's about striking a balance.
Exactly.
Right? Ensuring that those local voices are amplified.
Yes.
Without being silenced or manipulated.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance, but it's crucial to get it right if we want to build a truly inclusive and lasting peace.
Okay, so this report is painting a pretty clear picture.
Yeah.
Women, they're key players in peace building, both at the local and national levels.
Absolutely.
But I'm guessing it doesn't stop there, right?
You're right, it doesn't.
There's got to be more to this story.
There is, and this is where things get even more interesting.
All right, I'm all ears. What else have you uncovered in this treasure trove of a report?
Well, remember how we talked about these women navigating social and cultural norms?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out they're also navigating something else that's become increasingly important in conflict zones, the digital world.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, we've all seen how technology can connect people across borders, but I hadn't really thought about how it might be playing a role in conflict resolution.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, actually.
Okay.
On the one hand, it's incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
Think about it. Women can connect with each other across conflict lines.
Oh, wow.
Share strategies, access training resources, and even amplify their voices to a global audience.
That's amazing. I imagine that's especially important in situations where, like, physical movement is restricted or dangerous.
Absolutely. The report, it even highlights some incredible examples from Yemen, where women were using online platforms to connect with each other across front lines.
Wow.
Sharing information, coordinating their peace-building efforts.
So it's like a virtual peace network.
Exactly.
That's incredible. But I'm guessing it's not all, like, sunshine and roses online, right?
You're right. The digital space can be a hostile place, especially for women who are challenging power structures and social norms. You know, they face online harassment.
Of course.
Like threats, even surveillance.
Wow.
And in some cases, their online activity can put them at risk in the offline world as well.
Wow. That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
So it's not just about giving them access to technology.
Right.
It's about ensuring that they can use it safely and effectively.
Exactly. The report talks about the importance of digital literacy training, teaching them how to use privacy tools, how to recognize and respond to online abuse.
It's like equipping them with a digital shield.
Exactly.
Helping them navigate those online minefields.
Exactly. And just as we need to address those harmful social norms offline, we need to advocate for a more inclusive and equitable digital space as well.
So it's about pushing back against online harassment, promoting those positive narratives about women peace builders.
Yes.
And supporting women's leadership in the tech world.
Absolutely.
Making sure technology is a tool for empowerment, not a weapon used against them.
Well said.
Well, I feel like this deep dive has taken us on quite a journey.
It has.
We've gone from the intimate details of local mediation efforts to the broader dynamics of national peace processes, and now we're exploring the role of technology in this, like, complex landscape.
It's fascinating to see how all these pieces fit together, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And how these women are navigating all these different layers.
Right.
Working within their communities, influencing national policies, and even shaping the digital world.
It really challenges our assumptions about who peace builders are and what peace building looks like.
Absolutely. These women, they're breaking down those traditional barriers and redefining what it means to build peace.
And they're reminding us that peace isn't just some, like, abstract goal.
Right.
It's the result of countless acts of courage, compassion, and strategic action.
And that it's a process, not an endpoint. A process that requires constant effort, innovation, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I have to ask, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners? What do you hope they'll remember from this conversation?
I think the most important message is this. Supporting women peace builders isn't just about applauding their efforts.
Yeah.
It's about taking action.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well,
what concrete steps can our listeners take?
It can be as simple as sharing their stories.
Okay.
Raising awareness about their work and challenging those negative stereotypes about women's roles in peace building.
So use our voices to amplify theirs.
Exactly. And we can also support organizations that are working to empower women peace builders.
Oh, yeah, right.
There are so many incredible groups out there providing training, resources, and advocacy support.
So put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
Donate to these organizations that are on the front lines of this work.
Exactly. And finally, we can all advocate for policies that promote the inclusion and protection of women peace builders.
Right.
We can contact our elected officials, support legislation that advances their rights, and hold our leaders accountable for creating a world where their contributions are valued and their safety is ensured.
So it's about individual action, but also about pushing for systemic change.
Exactly. It's about working together to create a world where women peace builders are recognized, respected, and empowered to lead the way to a more just and peaceful future.
Well said. And to our amazing listeners, if you're as inspired by these stories as we are, I encourage you to seek out this UN Women Report. It's a powerful reminder of the incredible work being done by women around the world, and it's a call to action for all of us to do our part in building a more peaceful and just world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more. What makes this connection between the local and national peace building so interesting?
Well, you think about the kinds of issues that get addressed in those formal peace talks.
Yeah.
Things like ceasefires, troop withdrawals,
right,
power sharing agreements.
Okay.
Important stuff, no doubt.
Yeah.
But what about those everyday issues,
right,
that people in conflict zones have to grapple with?
You mean like, how do I get clean water today?
Exactly.
Or what happens to my land if I had to flee?
Exactly. Things like access to resources, the return of displaced people,
right,
property disputes, these things can simmer for years. These issues, they might not make headlines, but they can make or break peace in a community.
So while the diplomats are focused on the big picture, these women are dealing with the nitty-gritty.
Exactly.
The stuff that actually impacts people's daily lives.
Precisely. And often, these seemingly small issues, they're deeply intertwined with those bigger political questions. For instance, a dispute over who controls a water well.
Right.
That could easily escalate into violence if it's not addressed. And then, boom, you've got another layer of conflict feeding into that larger instability.
Yes, it's like a ripple effect.
Exactly. And here's the thing. The report suggests that women are particularly adept at navigating these complex local dynamics.
Yeah.
They understand the nuances of the relationships,
right,
the historical grievances, the unspoken rules that govern community life.
So they're not just mediators, they're also like cultural interpreters, helping to bridge these divides.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, their influence isn't always about, these formal negotiations. Sometimes it's about working behind the scenes, talking to their husbands, their sons, their brothers who might be involved in the conflict, urging them to choose dialogue over violence.
Yeah, it's almost like they're weaving peace into the very fabric of the community.
Exactly.
It's not just about signing agreements, it's about changing hearts and minds.
Exactly. It's about fostering a culture of peace.
Right.
And that's something that takes time, patience, and a deep understanding of human nature.
So how do we support that process?
Right.
I mean, it sounds like these women are doing incredible work, but they're obviously facing immense challenges. What does the report recommend?
Well, for starters, it emphasizes the importance of listening to women mediators themselves.
Okay.
Don't just assume you know what they need. Ask them.
Right.
What are their priorities? What kind of support would be most helpful?
So it's not about like parachuting in with these like prepackaged solutions.
Exactly.
It's about empowering them to lead the way.
Exactly. The report also stresses the need for practical skills training.
Oh.
In areas like negotiation, conflict analysis, building alliances, navigating those tricky power dynamics we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I could see how those skills would be essential.
Especially when they're dealing with armed groups or navigating these, complex political landscapes.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual skills development. It's also about creating opportunities for women mediators to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Think networking events,
okay,
workshops, mentorship programs.
Oh, I love that idea. Imagine bringing together these women from different communities, maybe even across conflict lines.
Exactly.
To share their experiences, their strategies, and to support each other.
Exactly. Creating those spaces for solidarity and learning can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about the importance of addressing those social and cultural norms that can limit women's participation.
You mean those expectations that women should just stay home, raise the children, and leave the important stuff to the men.
Exactly.
Right.
Those stereotypes, they can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But they're not set in stone. The report suggests working with male leaders, community elders, even religious figures, to challenge those harmful norms.
Right.
And to create a more supportive environment for women peace builders.
So it's not just about changing laws, it's about changing hearts and minds, right?
Absolutely. It's about creating a cultural shift where women's contributions to peace building are recognized, valued, and celebrated.
Okay. So we've talked about training, networking, and shifting those harmful social norms. Is there anything else that would help support these women and their work?
Well, there's one more crucial element that we haven't touched on yet.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here. What's this crucial element we haven't talked about yet?
Well, it's something we've kind of sort of danced around a little bit already. Resources.
Okay.
And I don't just mean financial support.
Right.
Although, I mean, that's definitely important.
Of course. Yeah.
But I'm talking about access to information, networks, even something as basic as transportation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, how can these women be effective if they can't even get to the places where they need to be?
Exactly.
Or if you don't have the information they need to make, those tough decisions.
Exactly. Imagine a woman in a rural village who's trying to mediate a land dispute, right?
Okay.
She might have the trust of her community.
Right.
She might have a knack for, bringing people together.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't know her legal rights, or she can't connect with other mediators for advice, she's at a huge disadvantage.
Right. She's going in blind. So it's not enough to have the skills and the will. You also need the tools to do the job.
Exactly.
What does the report suggest in terms of providing these resources?
Well, it highlights the importance of funding.
Okay.
And not just, one-off grants or anything, but sustainable funding streams that allow organizations to provide long-term support to women mediators.
Got it.
This could include things like training programs, travel stipends, even childcare support.
Oh, right.
So women can fully participate in those peace-building activities.
I hadn't even thought about childcare.
Right.
But yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
If you're worried about who's watching your kids, you can't really focus on mediating a conflict.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that these women, they have lives, they have responsibilities outside of their peace-building work.
Yeah.
And providing that practical support, that can make all the difference.
So it's about creating an environment where they can truly thrive, not just survive.
Exactly.
What else does the report recommend?
Another key point is the need for better data collection.
Data collection, okay.
Yeah, right now we don't have a clear picture of how many women are involved in peace building, what kinds of challenges they face, what their specific needs are. We need more research to understand the impact of their work and to identify the most effective ways to support them.
It's like that saying, you can't manage what you don't measure.
Exactly.
Right. If we don't even know what's happening on the ground, how can we possibly create effective policies and programs?
Exactly. We need to move beyond anecdotal evidence and start collecting hard data so we can make informed decisions.
Right.
And this data needs to be disaggregated by gender so we can really see those specific challenges and opportunities.
Right, to see the nuances.
Exactly.
Okay, so funding, resources, data collection, all essential pieces of the puzzle.
Absolutely.
But I feel like there's something even bigger at play here. This report isn't just about tweaking the system. It's calling for a fundamental shift in how we think about peace building.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that women aren't just add-ons to the peace-building process.
Right.
They're essential partners.
They're not just filling seats at the table. They're shaping the conversation.
Exactly. And they're bringing a different perspective, one that's often overlooked in those formal peace talks.
Right.
They're more likely to focus on issues like reconciliation, healing trauma, building social cohesion.
So they're not just stopping the fighting. They're addressing those root causes of the conflict.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to support their leadership, to create spaces where their voices can be heard and where their expertise can be valued.
It's about recognizing that peace isn't just the absence of war. It's the presence of justice, equality, and opportunity for all. And these women are leading the way in creating that kind of peace.
They're showing us that a different world is possible. One where peace isn't just a dream, but a lived reality.
So to our incredible listeners, if you're feeling inspired, if you're ready to be part of this movement for change, what can you do?
There are so many ways to get involved. Start by educating yourself.
Okay.
Read this UN Women Report. Learn about the amazing work being done by women peacebuilders all around the world.
Knowledge is power. Once you know the story, share it. Talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues. Raise awareness about this issue and the need for change.
And don't just talk the talk, walk the walk.
Right.
Support organizations that are working to empower women peacebuilders. Donate your time, your money, your skills. Every little bit helps.
And never underestimate the power of your voice. Contact your elected officials. Demand that they prioritize policies that support women's meaningful participation in peacebuilding processes.
Let's make sure women are not just at the table, but leading the way in shaping a more peaceful and just world. That's the future we're fighting for, together.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, inspiring, and a call to action. A huge thank you to our expert for sharing their insights and to all our listeners for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.